Welcome to Haunted Talks, the official podcast of The Haunted Walk, offering thematic walking tours in Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto, Ontario. My name is Jim Dean. I am the creative director of the company, and I really appreciate you joining us for today's show. December 5th, the day this episode is being released, plays a very important role in today's topic. We're going to be discussing perhaps the greatest coincidence ever recorded, taking place over 200 years. We'll get to that in just a moment. I do have some wonderful news that I would like to share. We were delighted to recently be recognized by our peers in the tourism industry with the Employer of the Year award. Now, we love our team of tremendous tour guides in Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto, and this award is especially meaningful to us as creating a workplace that is extraordinary for our staff has always been one of our highest goals. So thank you to our entire team, as always, for their amazing hard work. And also many thanks to the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario for the award and a wonderful evening. Now that we have moved into December, I wanted to let you know our Nightmare Before and After Xmas tours will be taking place this month in Toronto and Ottawa. These tours are going to focus on some of the bizarre holiday traditions from around the world. One of my favorite being Krampus, who is this anti-Santa Claus-like character in Europe, whose job it really is to scare the children into acting well so they can get their gifts from Santa Claus. A very unique tradition, and there's quite a few of them that we cover on the tour. Now in Toronto, the tours before Christmas will be taking place at Black Creek Pioneer Village, where we ran tours during the month of October. It had a lot of really strange stuff happen to us and our tour guides there, so we started including some of those stories in there as well. After Christmas, the tours in Toronto will move down to the distillery, which is just such a great Christmas setting for some ghost stories. In Ottawa, the tours will be taking place right downtown and will include a visit inside the Bytown Museum, certainly one of the most haunted and spirited buildings in the city. And I would just ask you to remember, if you don't think ghost stories and Christmas maybe go together that well, one of the most known and beloved Christmas stories is Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, where the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future come to visit Ebenezer Scrooge. For more information about our tours, or anything we have going on, please feel free to visit our website, which is hauntedwalk.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat at Haunted Walk. To start looking at the strangest coincidence ever recorded, I think it's first important to look to see where this story comes from. And it comes from a syndicated cartoon strip called Strange as It Seems, which ran in daily newspapers from 1928 to 1970, created by a man by the name of John Hicks. Now, what this strip was really well known for, or what they pushed, was their adherence that there had to be at least 3 verified sources for all the amazing, bizarre, unpredictable facts they published in this cartoon format. At its peak, the strip was printed in 1,300 newspapers, and it really competed with Ripley's with the same type of product. In 2009, Jeff Hicks, who is John Hicks's great-grandnephew, launched something called Historavision, a new media company that produces dynamic and high-quality internet film vignettes, kind of reviving the Strange as It Seems brand. They tried that a few years ago. It looks like maybe that project has lost a little bit of steam, but this one video, The Strangest Coincidence Ever Recorded, continues to be highly watched. What I'd like to do now is play the audio from this short film for you to get a sense of the backstory. And as I said, this does come from Jeff Hicks and his Historavision.
One of the strangest coincidences ever recorded spans a period of nearly 200 years and involves 3 ships that sank along the Menai Strait off the north coast of Wales. The first ship sank on December 5th, 1664, with 81 passengers on board. There was only one survivor. His name was Hugh Williams. 121 years later, in 1785, another ship sank in the same location on the very same day, December 5th. This one with 60 passengers on board. Once again, there was only a single survivor. Oddly enough, his name was also Hugh Williams. Two ships sinking in the same location on the same day of the year might seem strange, but when you consider that each of them had only a single survivor with the very same name, that seems downright peculiar. Except this is not where this story ends. 75 years later, another ship perished in the waters of the Menai Strait. This one, a small vessel with 25 passengers. Eerily, the date the ship went down was December 5th. Tragically, all passengers were lost, save one. His name? You guessed it, Hugh Williams. Strange as it seems.
So this does sound like quite an incredible coincidence. We have 3 shipwrecks in 1664, 1785, and 1820, all occurring on today's date, December 5th, each wreck having one survivor, while approximately 160 other people perished at sea. Each of the survivors, the sole survivor of those 3 shipwrecks, was named Hugh Williams. That is incredible and eerie. The question I immediately had, though, is this an urban legend, or is some actual truth here to this bizarre set of circumstances? As they say, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. So I thought the best thing to do in a case like this is go back and try to find the primary sources, the initial kind of reporting of these events, to see where that takes us. The oldest primary source I could find for the story dates back to 1851 from Cliff's Book of North Wales. In a footnote on page 155, he wrote, "On December 5th, 1664, a boat was upset in crossing the Menai Strait, and only one person was saved out of 81 passengers. His name was Hugh Williams. On the same day and month, in 1785, another boat was capsized with 60 passengers, all who were drowned with the exception of one, a Hugh Williams. On August 5th, 1820, a third boat with 25 passengers was upset, and all were drowned, excepting one who also bore the charmed name of Hugh Williams." From this initial source, some interesting things emerge. First, being published in 1851, that's almost 200 years after the first Hugh Williams survival story, which is credited as December 5th, 1664. So that's quite a gap in time, which may make us a little skeptical. The other important note here from Cliff's Book of North Wales is that he credits the third shipwreck taking place not on December 5th, but on August 5th, 1820. So that was about 30 years before he wrote this footnote. Another book, Guide to North Wales by Francis Coghlan, published in 1860, repeats the story of the 3 shipwrecks, with the final one also taking place in August. He wrote, "On December 5th, 1664, a boat crossing the strait with 87 passengers was upset, and only one person, named Hugh Williams, saved. On the same day, in 1785, another boat with 60 persons overset, and all the passengers were drowned except one, also named Hugh Williams. And August 5th, 1820, a third boat with 25 passengers met the same disaster, and all perished except one, Hugh Williams." Between these two reports, we see a small variance in the number of passengers who were killed in the first shipwreck, 81 and then 87 in this report by Coghlan. However, both of them clearly identified the third shipwreck as taking place on August 5th. I believe this leads us to consider that perhaps there were only 2 shipwrecks that took place on December 5th, and an August 5th one that was kind of brought into that fold at a later time. In examining how coincidental these events truly are, we have to look at the body of water itself involved, the Menai Strait. And it's a narrow stretch of shallow tidal water about 25 kilometers long, which separates the island of Anglesey, I'm not sure on the pronunciation, from the mainland of northern Wales. Now, the coast of Wales is really a dangerous place for ships. It's one of the most weather-exposed areas of the United Kingdom, which until more recent times was an island kingdom heavily dependent upon sea travel. Now, part of the reason there are so many British shipwreck stories in general is because simply there were a great deal of shipwrecks, period. And a great deal of them took place off the northern coast of Wales. More shipping leads to more shipwrecks. So there's a part of a numbers game here at play in that heavily traveled area that was known to cause problems. The legend itself of Hugh Williams makes it sound like there may only have been 3 shipwrecks in the Menai Strait over that entire time period, when the real number is probably closer to at least 300 shipwrecks taking place over that time, with likely thousands of people dying in those waters. And when we do look at the weather patterns off the northern coast of Wales and the Menai Strait, it does seem that December 5th is kind of the prime season for dangerous, windy and stormy weather, and really the coldness of the water as well. So on one hand, we can understand why more fatal shipwrecks took place on December 5th, and perhaps it gives us a little insight as well as to why the third shipwreck was moved from August 5th to December 5th in historical record. Another element of this story that bears some scrutiny is the name of the individual involved, Hugh Williams. Now, Hugh Williams was an extremely common name during this time period. In fact, Williams is still the second most popular surname in Wales today. So at any given time, on any of these ships on these waters, which eventually would become wrecked, we would expect multiple Hugh Williams to be involved. And it kind of got me wondering, how many Hugh Williams have been on those waters on December 5th over the years, and in fact, drowned during shipwrecks? This all got me thinking about my conversation about probabilities with David J. Hand in episode 12. And I would like to play you just a small excerpt from that interview where we talk about probability in the face of large numbers. One of my favorite chapters in your book is called The Law of Truly Large Numbers. And there are several laws in the book. We won't get into them all. Scientific, observational, which either affect probability or seem to affect our perception of probability. I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about how truly large numbers play into probability.
The law of truly large numbers basically says if you've got something which has got a very small probability of occurring, but you give it a truly large number of opportunities to occur, then it becomes almost certain that it will happen. I can give you a little example, if you like. The chance of any particular individual being struck by lightning, being killed by a lightning strike, for instance, is very, very small. Tiny chance of being killed by a lightning strike. But there are 7 billion people in the world. In fact, around the world, the chance of being killed by a lightning strike in any one year is about 1 in 300,000, so a tiny probability. But there are 7 billion people in the world. 7 billion people is a truly large number. So you take that very small probability, each of them has got a 1 in 300,000 chance of being killed by a lightning strike, and you multiply it by that truly large number, 7 billion, and it turns out you would expect around 25,000 people every year to be killed by lightning strikes, and that's what happens. They are. So the law of truly large numbers says if you've got a tiny chance of something happening, but you give it enough opportunities to happen, it becomes almost certain that it will happen.
That's really fascinating. And does that mean then, I think you just mentioned 1 in 300,000 or so, but even within, I guess, that probability, the probability of that per individual can vary greatly depending on their own personal circumstances, like where they spend their time, I assume. If they're, on top of buildings holding metal often, that would seemingly increase the probability.
You are spot on. And one of the other laws of the improbability principle, the law of the probability lever, focuses on that different circumstances can change probabilities substantially. So exactly as you say, if you're in an office, it's going to be far less than 1 in 300,000 chance of being killed by a lightning strike. But if you're standing on top of the building holding a metal sword or something, it's going to be much higher.
Could this principle of very large numbers be used to explain what appears coincidental with 3 Hugh Williams dying on the same day? Well, we do know there's 150 years between the 3 shipwrecks. That is a considerable length of time. Hugh Williams being one of the most common names at that time in the area, does increase the likelihood of Hugh Williams being on any boat, and therefore the likelihood of him surviving. We do know the area was extremely busy with shipping traffic, so there were a lot of boats around, and therefore, I guess, a lot of Hugh Williams on those boats. We do know that a significant number of shipwrecks occurred in that area, so nothing unusual there. And we do know December 5th would have been one of the most dangerous times of year to be on those waters. In the end, there may be two ways of looking at the greatest coincidence ever recorded. If we follow David J. Hand's thinking with these truly large numbers, we might say these 3 shipwrecks may have occurred on December 5th, and the sole survivor may have been Hugh Williams. But the large numbers involved, the number of Hugh Williams, the number of boats, make it certainly statistically possible that this may have happened and not really coincidental at all. On the other hand, we may look at the situation and say, well, the historical record may indicate that only 2 shipwrecks took place on December 5th with a man named Hugh Williams. And even more to the point, the first shipwreck is only cited approximately 200 years later after it took place. And is it likely the correct name of the man, this one man involved in this one shipwreck on this one given day, would be remembered for that length of time? Like all great historical mysteries, we will never know, as the answers have been lost on the sea of time. Thank you again for joining us for today's episode. To find out more information about our Nightmare Before and After Xmas tours, please be sure to visit our website, which is hauntedwalk.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat at Haunted Walk. And if you'd ever like to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email. It's jim@hauntedwalk.com. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you know when the new episodes are coming out. If you have been enjoying the episodes, perhaps as a little Christmas gift to us, you could introduce the show to some of your fellow podcast listeners. Or, of course, we always love getting a 5-star review. Until we meet again, happy holidays and sweet dreams.